What's up, Ionics, and welcome back to a new tutorial. Today we want to create a responsive design that works for both small mobile devices as well as desktop views with a huge screen. Ionic version 6 will bring out some cool components in the future for like a drop-down component or in general better support for desktop, and therefore I thought it would be a good idea to talk about how you can create a navigation like a menu that you could display inside a mobile view, but also how to create a nice little header bar at the top in a desktop view. Check out the link below the video to Devtechnik, where you can find the full source code for this video, and of course check out the Ionic Academy, my place to help you with all your Ionic questions. So let's dive into building a responsive UI with Ionic. Alright, so let's set up our application. We're gonna start with a blank Ionic application and we're gonna add a few pages. We will create a menu and 3 additional pages, and we will also create like a global header component that we can reuse. So we will create that inside a custom component and also generate a module for that component. Once you got all of that in place, we can head over to a few pages. First of all, app routing, it's kind of full. All of these things that we don't really need. The only thing we need to load in the beginning is actually the menu. So let's put the menu in the first entry. And I will comment out these. We will copy them later, so that makes life a bit easier. And we will change this to an empty path right in the beginning. Also, we want to inject the HTTP client module simply because we will make a little HTTP call to get some fake products later. That's really the only reason, not mandatory for the menu or for the navigation itself. Okay, we got the app module, we got the routing. Let's quickly also head over to our global SCSS and add a little snippet to change our background color. So now our application should look like this. We got the gray background. We're starting on the menu page, and we could now get started with a menu. Yeah, maybe we should do this. Let's go to our menu page, simply because I actually wanted to create the custom header component first. But we will do the menu first. So let's start our menu by defining a few menu items. I really need to work. We're gonna open a lot of files today. A few menu items like home, a products list, and an about page, all the routes we've defined. And we're gonna inject also the private menu controller so we can manually control the menu at a later point. Perhaps we start with a general UI of the menu. Do I have a snippet for an Ion menu? That looks quite nice already. Site start, type, we don't really need the type. You could change it, but I will just leave it to default. Start would also be the default, but well, let's keep it in there. Let's call it for the ID my menu, and for the content, we're gonna set this simply to main. So we have to create an Ion router outlet outside of the menu, which will actually display all the pages that should be displayed within our menu. Let's change this one to menu. And in order to display anything within the menu, we should also include the path. And now we're gonna make this little trick I mentioned. We're gonna grab everything that was added to the app routing and simply put it into the children array here. The path isn't correct, but you just need to remove pages and replace 1/ with a dot. So then we don't have to type everything and we got all of this. Of course, we don't really want to have the home page to be the path home, so we will just make this one an empty path as well. All right, what's your problem? App routing, I don't really see a problem, my friend. Could you just, yes, anyway, just a strange error. App products page ng type check, yeah, whatever. Let's just restart Ionic Surf. That's usually just the fix for everything. Within the menu, within the menu, where's my menu page? Here's the menu page. We now also want to include our buttons. I will bring them in to make life a bit easier because we really got a lot to do today. So now at least we can see our home page, and we should be able to go to About as well and to Products as well. Looks fine, looks fine. And we're starting on the menu page, and we can drag in the menu from the site already, which means overall we were successful in adding a menu. Great. This one's now a huge snippet, so let's go through it. Surrounding an Ion item with Ion menu toggle simply makes it easier to close the menu. So whenever someone clicks on a button that is wrapped inside the Ion menu toggle, the menu will automatically disappear. So we go through all of our items. We have a function that we still need to define. Set title, we will do this in a second. Router link, of course, just the path of the item of our iteration. Router direction, root. That's basically the default if you're using a menu, otherwise it looks kind of strange. Router link active to display which of our items is active. It uses the router, but the problem is, perhaps I will show you the problem. It's always better if I show you the problem first. Set title, yeah, whatever. Let's quickly fix this so we can actually see our menu items first of all. We should now be able, to see the menu. They're not really active since we haven't defined this active item CSS class, which we should now do in order to see the issue. So active item, I always just wanted to change a bit of the colors. The problem is if I now go to products, we see that home and products is marked as active. And the problem is that home had the empty path. So to fix this, we can add router link options. And this makes sure that the path match is really exact. That's actually what we say. Which means if the path is /products, it's not also considering home as active. So now it is already fixed. We see only one of our elements is active at a time. That is already good news. With our menu in place, we would now usually go ahead into our pages and add the menu button and that stuff. But we want to manage everything from our custom component, and that's the challenge we're gonna accept now. So what we're gonna do is we head over to our custom components. First of all, as usually, declare the component and make sure it appears inside the array of exports. So the module can export it. Then we can also directly go to the menu module back and import our shared components module. So now the menu would actually have access to the components declared in this module. We're gonna add it right in here, app header. That's usually the name. If you generate a component that's called header, you can see the selector app header. And we don't see it inside our application. I actually don't know why we don't see it. At this point, I was anyway messing up everything inside my application when I gave this a try. But the problem right now is simply, hopefully, that it's covered by our page. We can inspect this and see it. We got the app home, we got the Ion router outlet, and the app header is actually here but not visible. Oh, what a pity. So we're gonna move our Ion router outlet a bit to the bottom. Yes, we could do this in basically every view, or like we're doing it with our global app component approach here, we just do it inside the menu page. So if I find the right CSS, I could add this. We're gonna use a few media queries along our application. So until we reach this threshold, I think that's the mark for changing from MD to LG. No, from whatever, something. You could also pick a random other number. But before that, I wanted to have a margin top of 56. And once we get bigger, the header will also be a bit bigger. So can we make this completely here? But overall, we see now that we give some margin to the Ion router outlet, we can actually see our header working. Once again, we will see those breakpoints later. I just picked them because they work quite good with our custom component. So let's get into our custom component, the thing I actually wanted to do right in the beginning, but that should be fine now. So what we're gonna do is I will bring in two parts. Our header will consist of two different parts. The first part is a classic Ion header, Ion toolbar setup. You might wonder why everything is red. That's quite easy to fix because we're inside our own module and we've just added the common module. But we also need access to the Ionic module in order to access Ion header, Ion toolbar. And because usually you're gonna navigate from the header component, I will also add the router module in order to use router link. We want to display a dynamic title of our header component. So we're gonna add an input to the header component. That's the easiest way of passing in any value from our menu page to this page. I don't want to jump too much between the pages, so we're gonna just do this later. Okay, we already see we got a header component. It looks quite ugly because our home page and all the other pages still by default have a header area. So I'm just gonna remove this in all the pages. So home page, I will just add this so we know on which page we are. About page, let's get rid of all of this. And then we also had the products page. Yeah, thanks. That was awesome. Okay, products, about, home. Let's close them for now. So now the homepage looks like this. On small screens, we got the header. Actually, we still got it in all screens because we haven't defined specific handling, but we will get to that in a second. Now, the interesting part is, well, for mobile, it basically completely works. We can navigate, we on all pages have our custom button. Yeah, we should pass the title to the page, but that shouldn't be a huge problem at this point. On bigger screens, we of course don't want to have this. Really, this pattern on bigger screens, it just doesn't feel right. And instead, we want to have just a standard navigation bar like you're used to from other pages. And therefore, we're gonna create just one by ourselves. We're gonna give this the class header, and we'll also add Ion align item center, so everything is nicely aligned. Then we just go ahead and add a few things. So let's add an Ion align. I don't know if we still need this in this point. I don't think so. Let's add a little image to the first column. I just picked one from my blog. You can just use your company logo or what else. Then we got an Ion column of the size 8, which should hold our main navigation. And then towards the end, we're gonna add another 2 size column. And that one should have the text on the right side and just an Ion button like the card that we have on small screens with this default UI. But now we're gonna use a different UI. Okay, that will look great. It will just be underneath each other. So we need a way with media queries to either display the mobile header or our header. You could also do this with a screen size listener, as we will do on other pages. But for the header component, let's just use a simple CSS media query. Can we bring this in? Yeah. So for small screens up until this breakpoint, we want to hide, no, of course, that's the one. That's the one targeting small devices, maximum width of the 700 whatever. The mobile header will be displayed. Our regular header is not displayed. Other way, mobile header is not displayed. The header is displayed with a little bit of padding and background. So let's give that a try. And we see we got a nice clean header area on our, let's call it website view. And if we make this smaller, at some point it should switch to our cool little preview that will be used if you use it, like open it inside the device browser or as a progressive web app, something like this. And on bigger screens, we now got the full navigation bar that we're used to from normal pages. Okay, now things get a bit more difficult because we're gonna have to create our bar in here. Now, the first button of that bar is pretty easy. I will give this Ion text left so we can move everything to the left-hand side. A button, fill clear, router link, that's gonna be the home link. Just like we used in the menu, we will also define an active item and once again our exact option. For the active item, we can also directly do this because that looks actually pretty cool. So once again, just a little border to the bottom. In our application, yeah, we now already got the first menu item up here and we can't navigate anywhere else because it's the only item. It's quite boring, I know. Now let's add another item. Let's use about. It's basically the same like before, but this time we don't need the additional options. And for the third button, it's gonna be challenging because what I wanted to add is another drop down. So this is already pretty cool. We can switch between about and home. And just a quick note, if you don't add the header to the menu like we did, so what we did is we really added our custom app header right above the Ion router outlet. If this app header would be part of every page in our application, yeah, it's just a bit more of typing and not really a huge problem. We could do this, but whenever we navigate, the header would also reload all the time and it just looks like a bit flickering all the time. So by doing it like this, we're actually, yeah, you can't see, only replacing the gray area with our content and the header all the time stays completely the same. Like it's the menu layout, it's already there, we're not reloading it. That's the huge benefit of having the app header here above the Ion router outlet. I just want to point this out. So now we want to add another one for the products and we also want to have a little drop down whenever we go about that button. I know that's completely not something we would do inside a mobile device and that's actually why I wanted to add it. So here we go. Here is our drop down button. Yeah, it looks horrible. We will go through it one by one. We give it an ID because a template reference so we can access it as a view child in a second. We're gonna use mouse enter and mouse leave. So we can toggle our drop down. We can show it when we enter it and we maybe hide it when we leave it. The problem is if we show it, we leave the button, but we enter the actual drop down. We don't want to hide it. So this hide will actually check if we will really hide it or not. Fill clear color dark class drop down button, nothing special, router link, router direction and router link active. The button, the Ion icon will depend on our drop down value, which I will set to true right now so we can easily work on our component. And also add the hide drop down function, which we still have to implement. Great. So far, it looks okay. It looks like this. We're not really doing anything. Well, dropdown should maybe change. Okay, it's already to true. It would change if it was false. So we can navigate. In terms of the header, that's already pretty much what we wanted to accomplish, by the way. We have our global header right here. And once we go to a smaller device, we instead have this mobile header where we maybe just need to set the title dynamically, but that's not a huge problem. And we can go back to our big header. That took us about 20 minutes. Great. It's gonna be a long one. All right, now we need to display the drop-down view. I wanna put this outside of the Ion button because when I had it in here, no. It just gave a lot of problems. So we will have a simple div element which will be shown if dropdown is true. Once again, dropdown for a bit more styling, and this one will definitely set mouse leave dropdown to false because if we leave that dropdown view with our mouse, it's really time to disable it. Within the dropdown, we just have 3 simple click items. Should this be a button? Perhaps, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, might be time to use a button. But on click, we definitely also want to toggle the dropdown off once again. In the router link, I just thought it might be something cool to add query params at that point. So that's the Angular way of adding this. Perhaps we're already able to see this now. So let's give this a try. It's always withable. And now I'm at category cloth, gadgets, popular. Yeah, I know it's not working 100% yet. As we can see, there's a lot going on here, but we will get there in a second. Before we dive into, let's first of all work on the CSS. So we already display and hide our header stuff. We got the active item. For our dropdown, I just want to set this to a fixed width and height, background, absolute, so we can directly position it under the product. As we can see, now it's completely here. We can go over the items and get the highlight, so it looks pretty much like a cool dropdown. Actually, that works quite good. Yeah, if I leave this, it definitely hides, that makes sense, but it should also hide once I go to the left or right here. We should check this, and we will check this in a custom function. So we got our hide dropdown, which receives already the event. So let's go to that function. Do we need anything else in here? Yeah, we need 2 view childs. We need to, do we actually need 2? I think we just need 1. Well, first of all, we definitely need our product button view child. Could you just add everything? Thanks. Now we're gonna do 2 things. We're gonna first of all extract our positions from the click event. Why do I do this so complicated? Well, the problem is the click event, for example, for the X coordinate was like 256. Now the boundary of the button was 256 dot whatever. And because JavaScript, that was basically equal. So the touch didn't hide correctly. Yeah, with my fix, it's probably obsolete, but just in case, yeah, I wanted to make sure. Okay, I usually, when I find an issue, I usually find 2 fixes and then I also keep both of them. So this was one of them. The second is what I'm gonna show you soon. We're gonna check for the bounding client rect of the button. And then we can check if the X touch left to the right-hand side or to the left side. And in those cases, we definitely wanna hide our overlay here, dropdown. Also, if we move to the top, so we leave the Y coordinate, we also gonna dismiss it. And that's really the only thing I wanted to do with this function. It looks more complicated than it actually is. So here's the second fix. I'm not only doing this to fixed fix, which brings all values, even if X touch is 56, it makes it 5600. And the same for those values, but also now I'm also adding 2 pixels to each side just to make sure that we're definitely getting a difference between the touch value and the rect value. I know, too much. Pick the version you like most. Most likely you should just remove the 2 fixed. Perhaps we will do this in a second. Let's check. We can go over it, we can go to the top, it closes, we can go to the right, and we can go to the left. If you notice correctly, you will see that it closes 2 pixels too early, but I think we can live with that. Overall, it's a nice drop-down view with Ionic and JavaScript. Yeah, because I know you will ask if it still works, and then I don't know if it actually works. Let's quickly remove all these things that I tried to make our app better. And then, you know, I'm not perfect. Let's just see. Products. It still works pretty nice, right? So that's really the only thing we need right now. Okay, I'm happy with our drop-down component. Do we need anything else in here? We got the title. We're setting, we should maybe set the title from our menu page. So let's set the title dynamically to the title. And that's also the main reason why I implemented the set title function here. So we could have a title like something and set title this dot title equals title. That means if we're navigating inside the mobile screen, in the beginning it doesn't have a name right now. Maybe we could fix this. I will leave this open to you. But if we go and switch views, we now definitely have the name at the top because we're dynamically passing it from the menu page to our custom global app header. Okay, I jumped between the code I created for this tutorial, so let me quickly take a look what we did and what we didn't do. All right, there's one hidden functionality that's not really a huge problem, but on bigger screens, and we should disable this by default. Where is our, come on, header component dropdown should be false in the beginning, otherwise it looks quite strange. Better. Now we can actually also toggle this. The problem is on bigger screens we don't see the menu, but it's actually still there. I know only other developers or nerds might know this, but I can't live with that. If I know on bigger screens I have my menu and then still a menu here, that's just not possible. So what we can do within our menu page, I will set this to home as a little fix here. No one notices. You can create this, a better solution for this on your own. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use the platform to get the current width. This dot platform width. And then we're gonna add a function to toggle our menu. The function will be really complicated if we are above our breakpoint right here, which we might have created as a constant somewhere, so we don't have to play it. It wouldn't work great with the CSS anyway. If we're above that, we're gonna disable the menu. If we're below it, we're gonna enable the menu. And therefore, right in the beginning, we will call toggle menu with the current width. Now you're happy, I know, but I will show you a case where this still doesn't work. We're on bigger screens, that's cool. It's not working anymore. But what happens if we start on a small screen or actually move to a small screen? Well, then we don't have a menu anymore. So we also need to listen to the window resize event. And for us experts, that's of course not a problem. We're gonna add a host listener and we're gonna listen to the window resize event. And we're gonna get the value from event. Then we just add a function on resize, which gets this value of the event, and then we're gonna grab the new width of the great spelling, Simon, of the event target dot inner width. Just trust me with this, or log it out. Take the 2 minutes to inspect it. Toggle the menu with our new width. And well, let's just do a log, just because I like this new snippet of doing a little log. Okay, we got the menu, we are resizing, you see the width is increasing, and we hit our threshold and we don't have the menu anymore. And we can go back to the small screen and we once again got the menu. Now I'm happy, my inner monk is really happy that it's definitely only possible when you actually see it. Once again, we need these two ways because only adding the host listener wouldn't check for the value right in the beginning, so the menu might be enabled or disabled, but it's just a gamble at that point. I think in terms of the menu, the header, did we actually implement the routing? Yeah, it just feels like we did it yesterday. We got that. We got the CSS here for the active items. So let's also build a few pages. We're at 30 minutes. Thanks if you're still with me. But at this point, you already have a nice UI. If you only came for this, you can now basically leave. But I also want to show you a bit more about using the grid now and making the page look really like a nice website. All right. that navigation just felt not right. Let me quickly take another look at our header. We have the router link. That came from here, right? Router link. We should also set the router direction to root here. Okay, we already had button in here, so those items and buttons really did have a few well, attributes too much, maybe. It was just too much for me. Let me check again. If I go there and there, now it works a lot better. So set root definitely required, the router direction is definitely required to make it look exactly like we want to have it. So let's take a look at a few pages. We got the about page. For that page, I just thought I show you the general grid once again. And not only the general grid, but how you can use the size in different flavors. Where's my lorem ipsum generator? Alright, these values mean on small screens, we're gonna take all the available width of the column. On bigger screens, we're just gonna make them 10. And because we set the row to justify content center, it will put the column into the center. Now on bigger screens, we just use 8. And then on the maximum size, we're gonna use 6, which means there could actually be another element next to it. That's quite boring, so let's add a bit more of text here. So we can actually see. So it's nicely centered on bigger screens. On smaller screens, it goes back and then uses the full width. So that is the basic idea behind using the grid. Now we also want to change the home page. I just want to include an image so it looks a bit like a shop, and you could maybe use this as a template for your next application. The cool thing right now is that we don't need to define the header. We really don't need to worry about it on all the pages. We just need to think about what we want to display. And for the hero, I just want to display a background image. I took one from Unsplash, put it into the center, cover height, 30 view height, covering the full width. And then we got a nice little background image here that also works pretty good on all the small screens and also on bigger screens. You could also change this, but I feel like that's a nice little example of an image. Now finally, for the products page, we gonna load some data because, well, we haven't loaded any data today, and that's just a no-go. So we're gonna use an observable. Always try to use the async pipe when possible within your view, and then set products to set products to this HTTP. Inject the HTTP client. No, not the module. Pick the client. And yeah, I knew you want to have any, right? Now you're happy. Okay, Fake Store API gets us some products. And now we can bring up another Ion grid in here. I'm actually not 100% sure in which cases you need the Ion grid. If you don't feel good about using row and column, surround it with a grid. Otherwise, just leave it out. Okay, row, we're gonna use class Ion justify content center once again to put everything into the center. And I really don't wanna add this myself. So just like before, now once again, size 12. Once we get bigger screens, we're gonna use 6, which means we got 2 items per row. Then we got 3 items per row. Then we got 4, and on the bigger screens, we even got 6 items per row. With our iteration of items, and then just displaying a card with an image, title, currency. Really, nothing really fancy, but it should look pretty cool. No loading indicator. Let's try. Small screen 1, then it breaks to 2, it breaks to 3, it breaks to 4, 5, no, actually 12. You can't divide 12 by 5, Simon. That's the biggest possible. I think that's already pretty cool. We're quite responsive. The view changes, the header navigation bar changes. Everything is really completely responsive at this point. The only thing I would recommend to change is within the products page, you could set the padding for the grid for different breakpoints. So on bigger screens, it might be really better to have a lot more padding, or you could also override the whole width of the grid itself. But overall, this gives a bit more padding, as really you don't need to have everything until the border of your view on bigger screens. We could even have a lot more padding on the smaller screens, but mostly on our biggest screens, we now have a lot of padding around our grid. And we have finished our responsive application, including a nice little dropdown with query params, a few examples of using the Ion grid, of using a host listener, and you can use this and build a great e-commerce application. Alright, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this rather long tutorial, but I wanted to cover really everything. How you handle the custom component, how you integrate that header component and make it mostly dynamic, how to react to changes of the screen with use media queries, define different header elements that will be displayed on bigger and smaller screens. So really, I hope this is a nice template for you if you were thinking about creating something as a mobile version and as a desktop version, because this UI should really work for all your projects. If you used it in any projects, let me know below the video. I really love to see it in action, and otherwise, don't forget to check out the Ionic Academy, my place to help you with everything Ionic. Enjoy your template, build a great application that works everywhere with Ionic, and I will catch you next time, like always. So happy coding, Simon.